Easily, one of my top 10 anime of all time is a series called Shougen Roku Rakushinju. I just adore that series. The characters, the storytelling, going through the entire lifetime of somebody, all the tragedies, the ups and downs of a lifetime was just so beautifully portrayed. And yes, additionally, I also really like the way that it portrayed a very unique, entertainment, which is Rakugo. Something that normally whenever I see on television or I see somewhere else, it's not something that's going to catch my attention. Seeing somebody walk up onto the stage, sit down on a pillow, and they themselves with nothing else but their hands and their voice, basically playing out a story, portraying all the characters all by themselves. It's just not really something where I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to see more of this. But because it worked with Shougen Roku Rakushinju, it sort of allowed me to accept it as a entertainment. And so when I seen Akane-banashi, I couldn't help but think of Shougen Roku. Could this be another one of that? Could this be another one to stick in my top 10 anime of all time? Yes, stupidly enough, because it is a series that covers, Rakugo. But I have to say, after I watched a couple episodes of the series, I'm like, this has something here. This could technically contend. This is actually portraying it really well. It's very different than Shougen Roku Rakushinju, and it's not so far to the levels of that, but at least it's got me. It's got me. It has the potential there to be something special, and I think it really is in its portrayal of this stuff. Having a very good director that's working on it, that worked on Summertime Render and Space Brother, I think they have sort of the ability to kind of breathe life into this art form. But I've gotten through about half the series so far, and thankfully just now it's finally popping up onto Netflix. I think that more people are going to be able to sort of enjoy this series, so this is my thoughts on it so far. The series follows Akane, and Akane absolutely loves her father's Rakugo performances. Every single time he's on stage or he's practicing at home, it's like she gets taken to another place. She gets to see sights she's never seen before, meet people she's never met before. It's just every single performance itself comes to life. Well, unfortunately, one day, her father gives up on Rakugo, and that's because he becomes expelled. He goes to this one test to become a Shinichi, and even though he does an incredible performance, the guy that's running the entire thing, Isho Arakawa, comes up on stage and says, I apologize to everybody that witnessed this. Everybody that just performed, you're all expelled. That was a horrible performance. Well, Akane's father at this point pretty much just gets a normal job. It seems like everything is fine after that point. It seems like he's, taking in money. Everybody thinks it's a good thing because the entire time the mother's been pretty much having to support the family. But this annoys Akane. She felt that her father's Rakugo was the best. Even a lot of other people would agree the same thing. And so she decides to get back at Isho Arakawa, the guy that actually expelled him, by becoming a Rakugo performer herself and to show that her father's Rakugo was the best. So she actually goes under the tutelage of the guy that trained her father, and she seeks to one day become a Rakugo performer in order to prove that. And that's basically the nutshell of the series. It kind of goes through this process of her meeting different individuals that are under the tutelage of her master, different people that have different takes on Rakugo itself, until eventually she has to prove herself to her teacher before she gets invited to an amateur competition where she has a chance to actually meet Isho Arakawa and potentially ask him why he expelled her father. So my thoughts on the series so far. Again, I apologize because it's hard for me not to compare this to Shougen Roku Rakushinju, just because, again, they're both very kind of drama-based stories about Rakugo performances. And yes, there's quite a bit in here that they do get into similar themes around the idea of Rakugo itself sort of being a dying medium. Yeah, the idea of somebody getting onto a stage and just basically telling a story, it's very old. It's not today's entertainment of, streaming and action series, sci-fi, and all this kind of stuff that has sort of, captured our attention and brought us away from these old arts of, again, going down to a local theater, going inside there, sitting it down, and watching a performance. And Shougen Roku Rakushinju is, of course, was the, transition into a lot of imports coming in and different sort of entertainments that were, causing them to have to either evolve the art or let it die. And that's something that they're kind of dabbling a little bit into here in the idea of it being a dying entertainment and potentially trying to capture younger people and bring them into the art form. Where this really differs from Shougen Roku Rakushinju is that this is much more focused on the competition and the personal growth of the main character alone. Showa had a much smaller cast, and thus that meant that they can develop the characters much more and their romances and the interplay between them. With this one, it's more Akane herself and her gradual growth as a Rakugo performer. And that's where I feel like, unfortunately, it probably in the end won't be as good of a story, just because it feels much more like a sports type of anime. And what I mean by that is that with sports anime, generally you'll have, the main character and they're seeking the goal. And then they meet individual. That individual plays the sport this way. You learn how they play the sport. She learns something from it, and then she goes to the next goal. And then she meets the next person that she's going to compete against. They have their own way of doing the sport, and what makes them unique, she learns from that, and then she moves to the next individual. Competition, competition, competition. That's where I'm feeling like Akane-banashi is really becoming. It's a Rakugo sports show. And that's unfortunately a good and a bad thing, or I think it's probably going to have much more of a broader appeal for people because it's much more easier to consume. The characters so far don't have extreme depth to them, and it makes them easier to understand, but at the same time that will, unfortunately, I think in the end, prevent it from being a rich, deep story that it's going to, surprise me in the end. I just think it's going to be very surface level in its storytelling. That's not to say that it's not done well with the characters so far, because I do like Akane's character. We have a pretty simple but compelling storyline here with the first episode. I think, by the way, the first episode was beautifully put together. I think the story of her father was really well done. The idea of this individual who, yes, put all of his work into Rakugo. He had a very supporting and loving wife and daughter that were constantly supporting him along the way. His wife is literally pregnant, but she's still working in order to help him become a Rakugo performer. Like, her parents told her not to become a beautician. She went off and did beauty school, and she became one. And here, she's watching her husband, seeking out the dream that he wants to become a shinichi, which would actually allow him to actually bring home money. Whereas currently, he's not really bringing home much. Everybody's supporting him, and he gets up on that stage, and that support drives him and fuels his performance. And he does something unique with it. And he puts his wife even into the story itself and portrays her beautifully. Like, it's just great performance that shows how much passion he had for the art. And then there's the baton pass where he fails and passes it on to his daughter. And both him and his wife both support her in her, yes, it's to get revenge, but it's her own desire because she loves this art so much, and what her father did wants to bring it to more people. But still, Akane's character is great in the fact that it is an evolving character because you see where she starts out and she has the knowledge of what her father did and knows all these different stories, but she doesn't know how to portray it. She doesn't know how to give it life. So she's learning that over time. She's learning from one individual and how to sort of, interact with the crowd better because she's always watched somebody perform. She's never interacted herself. So she's got to learn that part of it. She learns about how to dig deeper into the stories themselves so that way she can bring her own life into them, having knowledge of the characters themselves so that she can be able to experience. She herself is learning life lessons in order to be able to understand the characters of the stories better. There's all these little things that are slowly enhancing her art of Rakugo, and you can see how she's sort of utilizing that in each performance. It's just the problem that I've run into so far after 7 episodes is that I've realized that we don't really have like a deep inner story here. There's no like drama, there's no conflict besides Akane wants to prove father great. That's all I'm getting so far. And then again, all these individual characters that have very simple stories, like Koji, he's very strict and you see that he really wants to pay his master back really badly. You have Kogama, who wants to look into the deeper history of all these different stories and give them their own little spin. You have the teacher who badly wants to make sure that none of her students ever fail again because she had this one student who wanted to become a comedian and come to find out he gave up on it. But now she sees that Akane has this deep passion for the art of Rakugo. They're very simple stories so far. And again, they do kind of come with a lot of these more sports-like anime where the focus is on every single episode. We have to introduce somebody new. We have to keep things interesting by constantly throwing new characters at you and new characters at you, new characters at you because look, keys are jingling. Look at the keys. That all said, even though I do think most all the character growth and focus is really just on the main character, Akane, she is a good character. I really do like her character. She's got that gusto. She's got those flaws within her. She's learning a lot of things. She's able to accept things that she doesn't understand in a way that is not too easy, but at the same time, this is a girl with an open mind. She knows what's necessary in order to succeed. She's got a lot of great examples from her parents, which, by the way, oh my gosh, having both parents present in the story is crazy, right? She acknowledges her mistakes. She has an open mind. She learns things. She pivots. She applies what she learns. She's a really solid and great main character with a really fun little personality. That all said, I think so far, again, the director and the team working on this project is doing a really good job of it. And again, that was something that I was really sold on and absolutely adored with Shogun Roku Raku Shinju is the portrayal of Rakugo. This is something that I've seen it actually on television one time, and it's like a camera sitting in a corner pointed at the stage, and the person comes walking out and they sit down there, and you can see their movements on the stage or whatever in their little spot, but it's not something that's engaging constantly. So the art of actually bringing that to life is, I would assume, is a struggle. And with Shogun Roku Rakushinju, they did it beautifully in the idea that you could see all those little subtle shifts with their foot, or the sweat coming down the side of their face, or this a little bit of a shuffle, the movement of their hands when they grab the fan, tapping the fan on the ground or whatever. All those movements tell a story while they're telling their story. What they're going through, their struggle, what points of the story are they, having a problem with, that kind of stuff. So far, Akane-banashi is not to that level, but it's doing really damn close. So far, a lot of these performances is coming across why they're pulling off what they pull off. One example is Akane at some point does this one performance of this story of the fears of these individuals. And the joke in this story is the guy brings up the fact that he's afraid of manju. It's a type of food. And so he tells these people that he's afraid of manju. And so to get this person, they put a big old tray of manju in front of them. And she's like, oh no, it's manju. And then grabs the food. And of course, the joke is the fact that he's not afraid of manju. He just wanted them to bring them manju. But seeing how she breaks apart this imaginary manju and starts wolfing it down, and how she keeps talking the entire time she's wolfing this stuff down, it implants in the mind of the viewer, God, she's just wolfing that stuff down. It sounds like she's wolfing it down. She makes it believable. And so you have people in the crowd that are literally picking up their drinks, and they're drinking because they're starting to get parched just from listening to her eating. It's, again, those subtleties and the voice acting itself that brings it to life and makes it believable. And they're so far, again, doing a really good job with that. If I had to give it one criticism, it's the fact that they're not really letting the entire Rakugo performance play out. It makes you puzzled by the fact that if this is about Rakugo performances, then why don't they feel confident enough that these performances are entertaining enough that we'd let it play out? Instead, they have somebody that's in the crowd tell the entire summary, or at least spoil the story itself, while they skip towards the later parts of the performance itself, get to the part that, enhances the characters, gets to the punchline, and then it ends. At the same time, I do like the stories. We're getting into a lot of them. I'm learning a lot about these different performances. A lot of these stories are very interesting. And again, what Kaguma himself brought into the mix was the deeper stories of a lot of these things that I thought was really fascinating. But yeah, other than that, I love the performances. They've been great. The voice acting so far has been really phenomenal. My gosh, Akane with episode 7. I don't know how the English dub's going to do this. Netflix and the dub team, good luck. I did watch episode 2 twice because they just released the first 2 episodes with dub, and that's why it's taken so long for Netflix to get it over in the West. I watched the first 2 episodes twice. Kaisei's dub performance with the singing segment was so bad. I don't think it's the voice actor's fault. They just probably told him, you got to do it this way because it sounds all Japanesey or whatever. It sounded like he was bored. What the whole thing is that he's doing a story about a guy going to this one singer and learning how to sing. So he's playing out the female's role and playing this very beautiful voice. And then it switches back to the guy, and the guy tries to imitate it, and he sounds horrible. That's the whole joke, is the fact that he does this beautiful portrayal of the female singing the song, and the guy does a horrible job of it. But when I switched it over to the English, it just sounded like the guy was bored. Like, it sounded like in the English, it was just, oh, I don't want to sing this song. Like, it just, what do we just phone it in? It doesn't sound elegant. It doesn't sound beautiful. So, I don't know. The rest of it was fine, but it doesn't really have me very hopeful for the dub for this series. I will say that. And again, with episode 7, Akane, I won't spoil things, but it's just a lot of stuff that's said very, very fast. And the Japanese seiyuu absolutely nailed it. It was incredible. I don't know how the English person's going to do it. They're probably going to shorten it. I assume they're probably going to shorten it, or they're going to have to do a lot of takes if they do it with the original Japanese, unless they just, throw in their English or something like that. Good luck. Either way, good luck. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. I know that I've had a lot of negative in this first impression. It's really like a lot of my expectations and desires for it to turn out to be incredible that are sort of, I guess I'm kind of curbing my enthusiasm. Like, I'm trying to make sure they don't get too hype of this series, even though I'm already halfway through it. I don't want to expect too much with it. I see sort of the flaws in its storytelling that fits too much into the sports genres. That is not, again, not a bad thing, but it's not to what I want to have in a top 10 anime of all time. I wanted this to be special, and I think it has the potential to do it. It's unfortunately not enough. It is still up there as probably my second favorite new series of the season. It's right up there alongside Witch Hat Atelier and Nippon Sangoku. Just a really good new series that I'm absolutely loving. So anyways, that's my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you found it informative. If you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content and you want to support the channel more, become a member. Until next time, take care.